Hey guys, so today I am reacting to James Kawale, I hope I pronounced his last name correctly, his interview about being a ex-Satanist. First of all, I have a lot of notes, so this could end up being a really long video or will turn into a two-parter. But before I even get started, y'all need to go watch this dang on interview. This thing, like, it's 4 hours and I watched all 4 hours 2 times and I took notes, and really, like, I have like a lot of pages worth of notes. Okay, so this is gonna be quite an in-depth conversation, but one that I just felt compelled to do. And so let's just get right into it. So he's originally from and additionally, the interviewer, I can't remember what his name was, but he did an amazing job. So if you guys ever watch this, signature round of applause to both of you, because honestly, that interview was like so amazing and I watched it twice. Okay, and it's been up for only 5 days. All right, so let's get right into the conversation. So the first thing that I really noticed was a theme in this was the fact that desperation is a gateway opener for the devil, for the lower vibrations, for Satan, or whatever you want to call this lower vibrational being. For the purposes of this story, we're going to call that being Satan. Now, I'm not saying that any of this that I'm about to tell you guys is true or false. This is just his testimony, and I believe it, but use your own discretion. So boom. So originally his mother really needed to find a husband because her father passed away. He was a wealthy man, and back then, as a woman in general, if you didn't have a man around, then all of your goods, it was like basically up for grabs and anyone could take it. And so she didn't want that. So she's like, okay, I gotta get married. And his father was like came from a prominent family, was a prominent man, and they're like, okay, well, he needs to have an heir. He needs to have an heir. So two beings that needed somebody, and I guess it was in a sense a marriage of convenience. And so they got together. Now, their first 6 children were girls, back to back to back to back to back. And if you believe in numerology, then the number 7 is already one of those like, kind of numbers. Number 6 as well, but number 7. But I believe by the 3rd child, his mom started to seek out alternative forms of reproduction, like going to witch doctors and different things like that. So, but like nothing was working. So her desperation began to like heighten, and her desperate need, because it was like, at that time in his village, and he even said, like, if you don't have an heir, if you don't have a son, you might as well not have a child. And so it's been 6, what could be perceived as 6 failed attempts at creating an heir. Now, do I agree with that? No. But this is not my story. This is not your story. So please do not be offended, because being offended apparently is also a way that the evil nonsense can get to you. So we're gonna get to that. This is a crazy Evan story, okay? So, okay, so then she hears, I'm so excited about this, because I love telling stories like this, even though like it's kind of crazy, like it's just so wild. But his mom like starts getting really desperate, because she's like, okay, like now I basically failed and I need to have a son. So she hears through the grapevine that there's this like woman, or this witch that lives in the forest. And in order to see this witch, she has to go into the forest of Africa, nude, with no cooked food for 7 days. Okay. And so she does that, right? And on the 7th day, this woman appears. This woman with one boobie, just one. She appears out of the woods, and it's like, okay, actually, I'm not gonna help you. So this woman is like, what the F? Like, I did all of this. I was nude in the woods. I barely had any food, and you're not gonna help me out? Like, what the F? Like, what up? So then she leaves and she's all sad. And so then she talks to, like, I believe it was like someone else she talked to. And then they're like, okay, well, you can try again. But if you try again, you have to do the thing all over again. So now she starts back at day 0 and has to do the 7 days in the nude, in the bush again. So she does it. And this time the witch is like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to help you conceive him because I can see that there is a son that's in your line. However, if he comes out, he's going to be a problem. So the only way that I'll let you have this son is if you commit to give me 7 cows for the span of 9 months. So that's 63 cows. And you promise him to me. And so the mom, she said later on that she didn't know what this meant. But sometimes I'm like, you know, desperation clouds your judgment. So she might have known what it meant, but she might not have really understood the implications that would come from her actions and the true consequences. So she's like, okay, fine, whatever. So she does conceive, and it does turn out to be a son. So one of the portions of the deal was that on the first day, not even like, you can't even like incubate this child for the recommended amount of time, because, you know, babies, like newborns, are not supposed to be out in public. She didn't get that. On the first day that this child was born, she had to take him to the woods. She takes him to the woods, and guess what's there? A freaking wedding. Because this child, this newborn baby that's not even a full day old is now committed to marry the 60-year-old witch. Like what? Like what? Like talk about child marriage. That's so disgusting. So, and you know what's even crazier? A bishop ordained it. So it wasn't even like, it was like people that you would think would just be straight up Satanists. There were bishops there. It was like a whole congregation of people there to watch this baby marry this one booby woman. And the witch woman was the she was the like head witch of the entire continent. So not